Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ken Bone Zone. It is episode number 36, and big announcement tonight. We have my very best friend in the whole wide podcast. Josh Burkett is back with us.
Hello!
I missed you so much, buddy.
Ditto, bud.
I wept on the inside, and we had a couple of interesting co-hosts while you were gone. Week one, the whole of Twitter was our co-host. Did the show live and was taking their comments as the show came in. It was chaotic and weird, especially after I realized that their comments scrolling up the screen, those don't get captured on the recording through Periscope. So it just looks like a crazy person talking into the ether and responding to nobody. It was a lot of fun.
So is Gizmodo going to write an article like, Ken Bone goes crazy, here's the proof. You'll never believe.
I hope they do. I use the exposure. Couldn't hurt.
Makes sense.
The week after that, I had to make you super jealous that you didn't get to be here for that one. So we had Shoshana Weissman last week as the co-host. She will be back on the show. We'll definitely have her back, and we'll have all three of us.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
She had a whole lot of fun. So since she didn't have a miserable time, she's agreed to come back. We just got to work that out.
I'm not too happy going right after her, especially since I feel like I've been living in a yurt and just completely cut off from society, doing a lot of writing. I don't know anything about any news for the past couple weeks, so I'm gonna be like, oh, you don't say, and I go right after the week after Shoshana does that. So
yeah,
oh well.
You missed a lot of news. And last week's show we talked about judicial theory and the kind of stuff that she nerds out over for probably an hour. She really, really gets into that kind of stuff, and she knows so much more about it than I do that it was tough to keep up at some time.
Did she talk about her platform of sloths by chance?
We didn't do too much about sloths, but we did talk about how if you want her to vote your way in the Senate, it will cost you $20,000.
Oh.
Which is my favorite ongoing Twitter joke. Since her Twitter handle has the word senator in it, so people think she's a real senator, like Twitter's monitoring that somehow. Like all the people that say that they're John Lennon are actually the resurrected corpse of John Lennon. But she says she's a senator, she must be one, so people tweet at her all the time wanting her to vote some way on some issue or telling her she should be ashamed having rainbow sherbet-colored hair on the Senate floor. And her response is always the same: send $20,000 to my D.C. office and we'll look into the issue. And it's a class.
That's awesome.
It never gets old to me. I love it every single time. Got some events coming up. I'm going to be in Pittsburgh next week for my regular job. So this coming up Monday or Tuesday night, if you're in the Pittsburgh area and you want to buy Ken a beer, you want to buy your host a beer, just let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at KenBone18. We will make that happen. And the week after, I will be in Washington for 4 days at the High School Leadership Summit for Turning Point USA. I'm going to be speaking on Monday night, and then I'll just be there for the rest of the conference. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Turning Point, they're pretty well to the right of me on most issues, but they are a very receptive group. They love talking about ideas. I've never seen them reject anybody, so I'm going to give them a chance to reject me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
So my good internet friend Kyle Kashev invited me to that. He is organizing the event. He's one of the Parkland survivors, the pro-gun one, not the David Hogg or Cameron Kasky or Emma Gonzalez anti-gun ones.
Will your speech be available online anywhere, or?
Probably. I don't know. If it's not, I guess I could just do it over again into the camera. That would be weird. I'm going last on Monday night. We're going to talk gun control and school safety all day on Monday. And then I'm going last to kind of lighten up the mood so the kids can sleep, I think. I think I'm going on at...
yeah.
I'm going on, I think, at 9 o'clock and doing a half an hour, so I'm going to try to keep it to 15 or 20 minutes of my main lecture that I usually do about empathy and fame, and then we'll just get into Q&A and let the young folks have a good time, ask me whatever they want to ask me.
Cool.
So that'll be a lot of fun. If you're in Washington, in the Washington area, let me know, and we'll see if we can organize a little meetup or something. we'll have a lot of fun. Let's see. Besides that, today has been a fantastic day. I got to leave work early, which I love, but unfortunately, leaving work early was to go to the dentist. So over the last several weeks, I've had 2 crowns put in. One to replace a giant filling from a chipped tooth I got playing hockey, like on one of my front teeth. It chipped it like 10, 12 years ago. And we filled it in with a really big filling, and over time those degrade and have to be replaced. And it was going to be so much filling that it would be more filling than tooth, and that makes them really brittle, so they said, well, we're going to go ahead and do a crown here. That went pretty much without incident. Then the other one was one that I'd had a root canal on near one of my lower back teeth, and this dentist office, back when it was run by a different dentist, did that crown for me, and they dicked it up. So the guy noticed that it was cracking away from the tooth after only 2 years. And this is a new dentist that's taken over the office now, a better dentist, who was like, yeah, that guy that ran this place before me must have sucked, because your crown needs to be replaced. They're supposed to last like 20 years, and yours isn't going to last 3. So let's replace it. So we go to replace it. I get a temporary put in, just like 2 weeks ago, and go today to get the permanent one put in. And I get to the office, and they're like, you don't have to be numbed up for this because you've had a root canal on that tooth. There's no nerve, so it won't hurt. Okay, cool. No big deal.
Really?
And it didn't. To their credit, they were right. So they just put a pair of pliers in your mouth and wiggle the old temporary crown off. And then he goes to put the permanent one in. And he puts it in and takes it out, puts it in and takes it out, and makes some little adjustments on it so it'll fit better, and puts it in and takes it out. And it's getting a little tender, a little sensitive. Then he's like, okay, let's take an x-ray. Well, we take an x-ray, and I could have told you the results of the x-rays. The thing was too big. It was the only tooth in my whole mouth that would touch another tooth. It was keeping me from being able to close my mouth all the way. It's like, oh, that's too tall. So after a half hour of me listening to him work on like a kid in the next room who's crying because he's getting a big filling put in, I'm sitting there all with my trepidation. He comes back and he's like, all right, sorry that took so long, and he adjusts the thing down and shortens it up and puts it back in. Well, he puts it back in and he's like, the lab that made this for us out of the cast that we made, they didn't do a very good job. And I'm like, well, thanks. That's excellent news, doctor. I appreciate that. And he's like, yeah, we're not going to be able to use this thing. So after 2 hours of being there, we put the same temporary one back in my mouth that I've had for the last 2 weeks.
Gosh.
And, they're going to get a new one made. So in another 2 weeks, we can try again to put the permanent one in. So this is going to be a month of having a fake tooth on one side of my mouth that I can't use. You can't chew with it because it'll break or come off or whatever. So the other side of my mouth kind of hurts because I eat a lot of food. I don't know if you listeners knew that about me. I like eating lots of food. And only being able to use about 7 teeth to eat all of that food, they're getting tired. My teeth are sleepy.
They're sleepy. See, if the dentist says to me, hey, this won't hurt, I'm still like, yo, but it might take a long time. Anytime I go to the dentist, I go to one of those that, they give you the nitrous and they have a TV right above you.
Ooh.
Nitrous and Comedy Central. And you can work on me all day long and I'll be all right. And I'll sit there and I will laugh through everything. And it's not bad until I get the bill, then it hurts. But
yeah, they don't even do that at this dentist. They don't do any sedation beyond giving you a shot. Or I might have opted for that. But instead, I just sat there in the chair while he was drilling on the kid and watched Rick and Morty on my phone. I only recently started watching Rick and Morty. It's actually really, really funny and really well written. I avoided it for years because it is the absolute worst, most toxic fan base in the history of fan bases. If you look at any, and I'm not saying all Rick and Morty fans are terrible, I'm saying the loud ones are terrible. The jackasses that jump up on the counter at Jack in the Box and yell, I'm Pickle Rick, and just shut the place down. Or all the morons who are like, this is the smartest show, the only reason you don't like it is because you're not smart enough to get it. No, that's not how writing works. If you write something and a broad audience can't understand it, it means you're a terrible writer. Rick and Morty is a very smart, very well-written show, but anybody could watch it and be entertained. You don't have to be a genius.
Right.
So all the gatekeepers are like, oh, you got to be smart to understand it. No, you don't. If you had to be super smart to enjoy it, it would mean that the writers were terrible.
Right. I keep getting people tell me that I should watch it, and I haven't yet. But
I thought it was pretty funny. I mean,
maybe on your recommendation, I will now.
Don't watch it with the kids. They
right.
The boys are too young, I think. Obviously make your own judgment, but definitely your younger son is too young.
Oh, I'm sure.
I wouldn't let either of them watch. I mean, Josh's kids aren't as old as my kid's 14. Josh's kids, what are they? 7 and 9.
7 and 9. Yep.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't let them watch Rick and Morty. Well, I guess we're gonna start talking about the news. We only got 2 or 3 big serious news stories today, and then we're gonna get into some other stuff before we get into our big picture topic. So hopefully the show won't be too heavy. My mouth still hurts a little bit from all the fitting and unfitting and fitting and unfitting. So if I get into a really angry / drunken rant, well, that's the consequences of listening to a free show, folks. You got to take it as you get it. First story, Peter Strzok, Peter Strizak.
Strizzle.
Peter Strizzy in the hizzy. He testified before Congress today about his involvement in the Trump-Russia investigation at the FBI, and man, do I ever hate this guy. I hate him so much, and if you're a liberal, you should hate him, and if you're conservative, you should hate him. If you're conservative, you should hate him because he is, like, going after the president, and plus, based on the text that he sent between himself and Lisa Page, it is obvious that he thinks you are a stupid, gun-toting redneck with just tobacco drool running down your face at all times. He just has disdain for all conservatives, all Republicans based on the text, which is gross to me because he's a public servant who should be, looking past that kind of bias for the people that he serves. And if you're a liberal, you should hate him because this investigation is your best chance to get rid of Donald Trump, which I know is what most of the liberal wing of the country wants. Well, this jerk, through his mishandling of the investigation and his illicit affair with Lisa Page and the texts and everything that have come out and getting walked off of the case by Robert Mueller, he has cast a shadow on this investigation. And even if they find, if they could produce a tape of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin shaking hands over an agreement to purchase the election for Donald Trump, and there'd still be a percentage of the population that'd be like, no, Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok is all Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok what was that detective's name that screwed the OJ case because he was a giant racist?
Furman. Mark Furman?
Yeah. Mark Furman, the detective. It was all the evidence was there. It was obvious that OJ did it, but the detective that handled the evidence in the OJ trial was a virulent, hateful, evil racist. And because of that, the defense attorneys were able to be like, well, hey, it's this horrible racist that's handling the evidence. Maybe he screwed with some of it, or maybe he planted some of it. And that was enough to cast a doubt in the jury's mind. And so he screwed up that investigation. Well, Peter Strizzlehizzle has done the same thing, essentially. For some people, he's cast enough doubt where they'll never, ever believe the results of the Mueller investigation, no matter what it is and no matter how clear it might be.
Right.
So that's sick. And so he testified before Congress today. He said, my feelings about Donald Trump did not affect my work. Bullshit. So you can use this as a litmus test for the intellectual honesty of yourself and all your friends, okay? So the guy that just got nominated to the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, which we'll get into in a minute, he says that he respects precedent enough that he would not overturn Roe versus Wade, even though he personally is pro-life, because he respects the precedent and the law enough that would be enough for him to not overturn Roe versus Wade. If you believe that Peter Strzok was impartial, but that Kavanaugh is lying, and that Peter Strzok was impartial and didn't do anything untoward in the investigation, but that Kavanaugh will overturn Roe versus Wade and he's lying, you're not being intellectually honest about people and their personal biases. If you believe the other way around, that Peter Strzok was a shill who was trying to take down Donald Trump inappropriately and was misusing his power at the FBI, but you believe that Kavanaugh will always, always adhere to just the letter of the law and never step outside of it, you are stupid. You'll believe anything, because personal biases always, always make a difference, whether you want them to or not, whether it's conscious or not. And if you think they're both 100% perfectly impartial, then you're just insane, and you seem to think that people in government are like demigods of some kind.
Man, Ken, I think your litmus test is almost too... It's too nuanced. I think people need to start at the litmus test of, on one end, Pizzagate, and on the other end, Trump peeing on hookers.
Oh, yeah.
And you skipped about... which we've talked about those, but...
That is a much better one. Yeah, it's my typical.
Right,
typical to me, I might be giving some of the hyper partisans too much credit in the intellectual honesty department. Now, everybody that's listening to this show, obviously, you are all fair and impartial jurists of the truth.
That was a great
and only care.
Yeah, that's a great litmus test for our listeners.
Yeah, for our audience, people who are capable of rational thought. But for society at large, I think the Pizzagate versus Trump P tape is probably a better one to start with. It's the little golden books version of the Harvard Law Review that we try to do on this show.
There we go. Good comparisons.
I love little golden books, and I can't read the Harvard Law Review. Anyway, so yeah, Peter Strzok's an asshole is what I'm trying to say. And whether he did a good job on the investigation or not, nobody's ever going to believe it. Because he's a dick. And, okay, let's see. We'll move on to Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh is the judge who has been nominated to be the next Supreme Court justice, to take over for Justice Kennedy. And he'll get confirmed, almost certainly. Because the only two Republicans that might have strayed to the Democrat side to not confirm him have already stated, no, we're going to confirm him. So Chuck Schumer and Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, they can make as much noise as they want now, but really it's just so that they can appeal to their base with the elections coming up, because it won't make a damn bit of difference. I'm sure that Mitch McConnell, now that he sees the votes are there, is going to call for a vote the instant he possibly can, like as soon as it is possible, and Kavanaugh will get through. And it seems to me like he should get through, because I've done a lot of reading about the guy. And look, here's the two things that I do like about him that a lot of people on the left don't like about him. And here they are. One, he respects precedent. Like precedents that have come up in case law before, he says he's not just going to go back and overturn them. So for case law that I don't necessarily agree with, like Roe v. Wade, which I don't think was a very well-handled case, I don't necessarily disagree with the results. I do disagree with the way the case was handled. He says he will respect that. Okay, good. I say we should take him at his word because he's not a proven liar. But he also respects precedent that I do like Heller versus D.C., which upholds the notion that everyone in America has the right to own personally owned firearms. That was only enshrined by the Supreme Court very, very recently, like within the last 10 years or so. 10 or 15 years. So yeah, it's until then, the Supreme Court had never clarified the Constitution as meaning in the Second Amendment that every individual had the right to own firearms. So I like that precedent very much, because to me that's how I read the Second Amendment. That's what I think that it means. And he's also an originalist, which means that he's going to read the Constitution, and he's going to read the founding documents, and he's going to say, okay, this is what it means, and this is what the writers of it intended it to mean, so that's how I'm going to rule. It doesn't matter. Now, of course, we already talked about biases, but by and large, he says it's not going to matter what he feels about the case. It's going to matter what the documents and the laws say about the case, which is exactly what you want out of a judge. It's exactly what I want out of a judge. I don't want an activist ruling class of judges being able to hand down what amounts to law upon us. So like whenever you hear, right. I've heard a whole lot this last week or so that Roe versus Wade is settled law. Well, it's not. Roe versus Wade is not settled law. It is a settled judiciary case. Heller versus
Right.
D.C. is not settled law. It is a settled judiciary case. The courts do not make law. They interpret the law. So every state right now should be looking at codifying their own stance on abortion and their own stance on gun rights and their own stance on Citizens United. That's what you should do after every major Supreme Court case. You should codify it in your own state law. Because if Roe versus Wade did get overturned, it won't. If it did, that would just mean that every state now gets to decide for themselves whether abortion is going to be legal and to what extent. It does not mean that it becomes illegal, because Roe versus Wade is not the law.
Right.
It's just decision. It is just a decision that says you cannot make abortion against the law, because it is a fundamental right as found by that case. So, like, there's a big it's an important distinction, because saying that it's settled law is heaping too much power on the judiciary, just like we've done with the president by giving executive orders so much power. And that's why, like, people get so mad at Obama and they got so mad at Trump, because they were able to do a lot with just the stroke of a pen without having to go through Congress. Congress is really shitty at its job. That's why we have our segment that we run every couple of weeks called Congress is Terrible, because they're awful. They're terrible at their job. And since they're so bad at their job, they give parts of it away. They give some of their responsibility to the executive branch. They give some of their responsibility to the judicial branch. And that's kind of letting Congress get away with sucking. And I don't like that. Yeah. Plus, Congress, especially the House of Representatives, we get to re-elect as a whole every 2 years. That's the people's control on power. That's what the House of Representatives is supposed to be, is the people having control on power. And the more of that power that the House of Representatives gives away to other branches of government, the less power that we as people have. And that really is a disturbing trend that I don't like to see. Yeah, so the more of this power that we give away to the judiciary, the less happy I'm going to be. So an originalist is what I want. And the beautiful thing about our Constitution is that if you don't like it, you can change it. Katie Tour on MSNBC asked, should we really be adhering to the Constitution by the letter, since our culture is so much more progressive than it was in 1776? Well, the Constitution didn't get ratified until 1789, Katie. So I should get your show. And also, if you don't like the Constitution, you can change it. There's an amendment process. We've done it 27 times already.
Right.
So yeah, we should adhere to exactly what it says, and if it says something we don't like, we can change it.
Yeah, the argument that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. When I first kind of heard that, it had some appeal, admittedly, to me, but then just it can be taken way too far, and having it interpreted as original as possible with amendments to change it, that makes a lot more sense. It's a much better safeguard. Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, let's say that the 19th Amendment that allowed women to vote. Let's say that we just wanted to say, hey, we're just going to interpret the Constitution as saying that everybody gets to vote. We don't need an amendment for that. Well, who could have stopped later justices from coming along and saying, just kidding. Yeah,
right.
That's not right. And then a panel of 9 people could have taken away women's right to vote, or black people's right to vote, or changed the legal voting age, or reinstituted the poll tax, or allowed the British king to house soldiers in your room. You know, it's anything that the Constitution didn't explicitly say without those amendments. Could have just been at the whim of the court, which I don't like. It's too much power for people to have. So yeah, I like Kavanaugh. I like that he's a strict constructionist and a strict originalist. But of course, there's a lot of people who don't like him strictly because he isn't going to try to legislate from the bench, or at least we don't think he is, based on his words and his history. And that's what they want out of a justice. They want Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Sonia Sotomayor, who is going to try to interpret the law in such a way that fits their will or their bias. Well, I don't want that. It's too much power for them to have.
Right.
So we got to start attacking Kavanaugh. And how are we going to attack Kavanaugh? Well, turns out he's super squeaky clean. He volunteers at soup kitchens. And he's like a really super nice guy who helps the homeless. Oh, we'll attack him by saying he's like another rich elitist. So the Washington Post looks into his finances and finds, oh, he's going to be the poorest of the Supreme Court justices. Even if you count his house and his retirement account, like his government equivalent to a 401k, he'd still have less than $1 million in assets. So then they say, okay, well, we'll say that he is irresponsible with money. That's why he's not rich. I guess you should have to be rich to be on the Supreme Court. So they said he had all kinds of credit card debt. And he spent frivolously on baseball tickets and had thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Well, he likes baseball. And,
That's American.
And he already paid off that credit card debt. He bought a bunch of season tickets on his credit card for him and several of his friends, and then his friends gave him the money back for their share, and he paid off the credit cards.
So he got frequent flyer miles.
Yeah.
That's not a story.
Between him and his friends, they must have decided, like, hey, you're the one who has access to the cash on hand right now, or you're the one who gets, credit card rewards or cash back or whatever. So why don't you be the one to make the order, and we'll give you the money next week. We'll give you the money after the order's done. And Justice Kavanaugh, or possibly Justice Kavanaugh, right now he's just Judge Kavanaugh, is like, oh, okay. Because that's what you do. I've done that all the time. Like me and my friend Ryan that go and see all of the Star Wars movies together because we're, man boyfriend nerds. We have our man dates. I buy the tickets and he buys the popcorn, or the other way around, or one of us will buy the tickets and the other one will give him $9 or whatever the price of the ticket was, because it's just easier.
I see it now. You run for state senate one day and then the commercials at play in Southern Illinois. Ken Bone, does he love Star Wars too much?
Oh man,
paid for it way too many times. It's gonna happen.
There is so much worse stuff. One of the best parts about getting accidentally famous, we get off on one of our tangents that we love on this show so much, is that like all that terrible crap about me came out. Like, and I was like, well, Ken, that's insane. Why do you want all that terrible crap to come out? Well, I didn't want it to come out, but here's the good part. There isn't any more. If there was, somebody would have found it. That stuff was the worst that they could find, and so now I don't even have any skeletons in my closet. So I never have to live in fear of being like, oh, my family's going to find out about this, or my neighbors are going to find out about this. Now, they already know all that shit. It's over.
It's a good point.
So that once I started thinking about it that way, and one of my other good buddies that I was talking to about it kind of brought me around to that point. I was like, I think you're right. That's the silver lining here, is there's no other dirt to be dug up, and I don't have to worry about it. So what else have we got on Kavanaugh? What else makes Kavanaugh look bad? Well, according to Stephen Colbert, his name sounds like a waiter at Ruby Tuesday, because his name's Brett.
Oh, okay.
Is that bad to be a waiter at Ruby Tuesday, for one? And for two, Stephen Colbert, we have senators named Tammy, Chuck, Lindsay, Kirsten, Maisie, Doug, Sheldon, Bernie, and Angus. We used to have one named Denny, and we had a very important person in politics named Steny. Are you telling me you can't have a stupid name and be in politics?
No doubt.
That's nothing. That was just, and maybe that one's too overblown because it was just a dumb joke from Colbert's opening monologue. But I think it goes to show that with the level of hatred and vitriol that there is for anything Trump, and Kavanaugh is a Trump nominee, so he is automatically lumped in with the Trump train. That's the best they could find, is that he bought baseball tickets and his name's Brett.
That's just reaching, really, 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 just really reaching.
Yeah.
Now, granted, if his name was Chad, that's where I would draw the line.
Oh yeah.
But Brett,
you can't have a Supreme Court justice named Chad or Stacy. But you have a whole bunch of people even saying like, "Oh, he's frat boy Brett. He's a frat boy." Okay, well, he went to Yale. I'm sure the frats at Yale got really friggin' out of hand.
Yeah.
All those Ivy Leaguers. It's lots of people join fraternities. I didn't because I went to technical school. Yeah, that's nothing. So unless you can dig up some better dirt, I'm kind of tired of hearing it. Just have the confirmation hearing, give him an up or down vote. He's gonna get confirmed. Could we move on to something we can actually do something about? And while we're wasting all this effort on just being hateful towards a guy who seems like a pretty decent guy, remember that there's all kinds of vacancies on like the circuit courts, like the Ninth Circuit Court, the DC Circuit Court, all those courts. The president gets to appoint people to those also. For every case that reaches the Supreme Court, there's a few dozen that get handled by the circuit courts before it gets to the Supreme Court level. So these people actually affect policy way more than the Supreme Court, or at least way more often. And Trump's able to just snap his fingers and get those people cruising on in because everybody's paying attention to something else. Trump is the master of misdirection, and it looks like he has misdirected everybody again. Like he can just, like he says something mean to Angela Merkel about how Germany should have to pay the U.S. for its military or some stupid thing like that. And everybody fixates on that while he is just rattling off his agenda behind the scenes. I can't believe that he is still getting people to fall for it.
Right. Look at this shiny thing over here.
Yeah, he's a close-up magic guy. He is pulling a quarter out of your ear because he got you to look at his other hand. And he's just doing it over and over and over and over again. Let's see. Only a little bit more in politics here. My last political story is my favorite one of the week. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York State, says that if Roe versus Wade gets overturned, he will sue. He will sue who? I don't know. He'll sue the Supreme Court. You can't sue the Supreme Court.
Like, can you sue the Supreme Court?
No, because you have to understand what suing someone is. Suing someone is be like, okay, I am going to say that you are wrong and I am right based on the law, and we're going to go to a judge or a court and let them decide. We're both going to get lawyers and we're going to do this. Well, if you say the Supreme Court is wrong and I am right, that would mean you'd have to go to a higher level of court to be able to get them to decide, to overrule the Supreme Court. Well, they don't just call it the Supreme Court because it comes with both peppers and onions. They call it that because there isn't any higher than that. There's no like ultra deluxe court. There's no universal court. There's no earth court. The Supreme Court's just it. So there's nowhere for you to go to sue Governor Cuomo. And when I watched the video of Cuomo saying that he would sue, the saddest part of it wasn't that Cuomo doesn't seem to understand the law, because I do think he understands it a little pretty well. And he was just saying this to get a reaction out of the crowd. And get a reaction he did, because the whole crowd just erupted, woo, screaming and clapping like, you know, Albert Pujols just hit a home run. He's, woo, it's amazing, yay, it's so great. Idiots, okay? You're just a bunch of trained seals, and you have trained seals at Trump rallies, and you have trained seals for Cuomo, you have trained seals for Chuck Schumer, and it makes me sick to my stomach. You just cheer like, yay, he said he's going to do something. He just said he was going to reach up into the moon and pluck it down and give it to me in a literal sense. And I believe him because he's in government. Yay! Idiot. Fuck every one of you. My tooth hurts.
Uh-oh, pain meds are wearing off. He's getting salty. He's getting woke.
Eat a Tide Pod and die.
Eat a Tide Pod and die. I still say that all the time, thanks to you.
Yes. That was the pinnacle of the show, and it's like episode 12. We'll never reach it again. Hey. Anyway, get away from politics before my left eyeball explodes. The kids' soccer team in Thailand got rescued. So there was... so you probably missed all of this. What happened there? You missed the modern-day equivalent of Baby Jessica, only it was like 13 Baby Jessicas trapped in the well. So it's a boys' soccer team in Thailand. All these kids are like somewhere between 11 and 13, something like that, I think. They went like cave exploring with their coach, which, you know, I guess like we have a place called Merrimack Caverns, not far from St. Louis here, where you can go on tours of these caves. Well, they go into these caves, and I guess they went the wrong way because they ended up, when the tide came in, stuck in the cave, and they couldn't get out. Like, they would have drowned trying to get out, and they ended up, like, they were just missing for, I think, 8 or 9 days. And everybody's like, oh, man, they're dead. You know, they've been missing in a cave for days. Well, they found them, and they were all alive. You know, rescuers found them, and then rescuers started working towards, making a plan to get them out. We're going to go in, and we're going to put oxygen bottles every so often, and make air pockets, and make this rescue plan. And unfortunately, one of the responders, a Thai Navy SEAL, not a U.S. Navy SEAL of Thai descent, but the Thais have their own Navy SEAL equivalent that they also generally call the Navy SEALs. Unfortunately, he died. He emerged into what he thought was a pocket of air, but actually all the oxygen had already been depleted, and he was just breathing in stale air, and it was too far to the next pocket, and he suffocated and died. So, a professional underwater diver and warrior died, and that's when people started thinking, oh man, these freaking kids are in trouble. But thanks to the efforts of a lot more rescuers, they were able to get all the kids out. So as of a couple days ago, all the kids and the coach were out. So,
that's super cool.
Congratulations to all the first responders. Big thanks to the SEAL who unfortunately lost his life, but also to several doctors and other first responders who actually were able to make their way into the kids and stayed there with them for days, medically checking them out and making sure they were strong enough to make their escape. So intentionally made themselves trapped with the kids and with the coach.
Wow.
So really, really feel good story there that we were able to get all the kids out.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was the baby Jessica in a well of our time, except nobody was paying as much attention as they were to baby Jessica because they were too busy screaming Nazi at each other.
Right.
So another great feel-good story here. Down in Miami, there's a homeless man named Jonathan Crenshaw who has no arms, and to make money, he uses his feet to hold a paintbrush, and he makes paintings out on the street. And people buy them. And he's like a local fixture down there in the Miami area, and lots of people know him. But on the downside of this story, not only can he use his feet to hold a paintbrush, he can also use them to hold a pair of scissors, and he stabbed a guy with the scissors. So a homeless guy with no arms stabbed a dude, and now he's in jail. So, sucks.
That sucks for you.
So Mr. Crenshaw, his side of the story is this tourist from Chicago, so probably an a-hole, is passing him in Miami, and Jonathan is just laying down on the street, in his spot, and dude kicks him in the head. So Crenshaw picks up the scissors with his feet and ain't having any of that shit. Overcomes his disability by stabbing the guy with a freaking pair of scissors. Now, the guy that got stabbed says, I didn't kick him in the head. All I did was ask him for directions. Now, those are two pretty wild extremes. I don't know who to believe there. But I do believe in Jonathan Crenshaw's kick-ass foot-stabbing power.
This guy has answered the age-old question of, if a man has no arms and a knife, is he armed? Apparently, yes.
I get it. He was armed and dangerous. See you next week, folks. So yeah, that's fantastic. I hope he gets out of jail, unless he's a crazy foot murderer. He's a homeless guy. I hope he gets the help that he needs so he doesn't have to make paintings and stab people with his feet anymore.
Man, there's some other dad jokes here, man. I know it. I'll think about it.
Audience, please leave your dad jokes in the comments. And more. I know that people are listening to the show. We get several hundred views every week, which is not a ton, but it's not insignificant. I'd like to see more comments in the comments section. So please leave your comments. Unless you're the one jackass from last week who left a comment that said, "Please stop making this podcast." Well, guess what, folks? Even if you hate my guts and want to stab me with your feet, if you watch the podcast, it counts as a view, dumbass. It's good for my ratings and encourages me to continue making the show. So more comments and more people watching the show, even if it's just out of hate. Like, I hate this bald son of a bitch so much. I'm going to pull his mustache out. That's views. Advertisers just looking like, man, that hateful son of a bitch really, really loves the Ken Bone Show. It just watches it every week.
You gotta think how many trolls like go back to the forum to see if you've responded, so they keep just giving you.
Oh yeah, watch it 10 more times. Like if we get 300 views, I don't care if it's actually one dude that just despises me and watches it 300 times. Tell 10 of your hateful friends so I can get some better sponsors. Everybody watch it 10 times from 10 different computers. That could actually get the video demonetized if YouTube hears that. But joke's on them. We don't make any money. We're smart that way. Can't get demonetized if you don't make any money. Let's see, what else we got here? Academy Sports, which is kind of like
the stand-up. I mean, not like impromptu comedy. Is that what?
No, it's Academy Sports.
Academy,
like
comedy sports.
No, like the Jedi Academy.
Oh.
It's kind of like, what's that other? It's like Dick's Sporting Goods, or what's another big one?
Oh yeah, okay.
Sports Authority. It's a store kind of like that, but they also have a lot of outdoorsy focus. So they're kind of like a cross between Dick's Sporting Goods and like a Cabela's, because they sell fishing poles and some of them even sell firearms. Well, here's one that sells firearms down in Florida, Tallahassee. So a guy asked to see a Glock from the gun case, and this is not uncommon. You go anywhere that sells guns, before you drop $700, $800, $900 on a handgun, you're gonna want to check it out. You know, as you like, make sure the slide actually works. And you want to look, see how it feels in your hand. You know, you don't get to shoot it, but you get to hold it. You know. Well, right. Florida has relatively loose gun laws, and I don't know if it was a breach in by like the employee who didn't do the right checks or what, but he's like, all right, here you go. No, like, okay, give me your ID and I'll hold it, because that's what you do here in Illinois. You have a firearm owner's identification card, which you have to go through a background check with the state police to get, and then when you go, before you can touch a gun in a gun shop, you have to give the gun shop clerk that card, and they hold on to it, you know, until you leave. That way, if you try to steal the gun, I got your ID right here, dummy. It's got your picture on it and everything, you know, so they can report you. Well, I don't know if that's not what goes down in Florida or what, but as soon as this guy got handed the gun, he just ran off with it. And as he was running off, the clerk is yelling, "Somebody stop that guy!" Well, the manager of the store tackles him like at the front door.
Nice.
Just friggin' lambasts him. The gun goes flying out of his hand. They pick him up and they take him to the office, and he was wearing a backpack that also had some stolen magazines and stolen ammunition in it. So he could have immediately, as soon as he ran back to his car and peeled off, he could have loaded it and just been ready to shoot some people. So when they get him in there, the cops come, and he said, according to the police report, quote, "I stole it and I admit to it. I will steal again when I get out of jail." He says his family's been threatened and that I'm gonna shoot someone, quote, "just you wait and see." Jeez. The cops then take him to the police station where he is released from jail pending trial. So he said, as soon as I get out of jail, I'm stealing another fucking gun, I'm gonna shoot somebody. And they let him out of jail.
You wait and see.
Just you wait and see, I'm gonna shoot somebody. And they let him out, and they're like, well, I freaking dare you, I guess. They let him out. And not only did they let him out, but Academy Sports company policy, like almost every place else. Like, when you worked at Ponderosa, they probably went over this with you. When I worked at a bowling alley, they went over this with me. If somebody comes in and demands all the money in the cash register, give it to them. And then when they go to run out, you just let them run out. Try to write down their license plate number or something. We, as the company, don't want to get sued for you getting killed trying to stop a robbery, is basically what they're saying. Just get all the information you can. Well, this seems to me like it was a special case, though, because it was a gun. And the guy could have, it's a gun. It's a criminal stealing a gun, so who knows what he was going to do with it until he basically admitted, I'm going to shoot somebody with this thing. But that manager that tackled him, he got fired. He got fired for stopping a robbery in progress, which was against company policy. That sucks. This dude definitely did his part to prevent somebody from getting shot. It's not like the dude stole a camp stove or a fly fishing rod. It was a gun. You can't just, to me, you can't just let people run out with guns. And if you don't have some kind of way to secure people, with the guns, like if you don't have an RFID tag on the gun that, won't allow it out the door, or if you don't at least have an exchange of identification or something, you shouldn't hand somebody a gun. Like at my local gun shop, Ron and Joe's Firearms, on the frontage road next to Highway 64, where I go for all my ammunition and anytime I need anything gun related. They have real experts there, and I love it there because the guys are knowledgeable and they're very, very serious about gun safety. And every single one of the clerks there, from the owner down to the stock boy, has a gun on their hip. And if you do the exchange of identification and hey, let me see that Smith & Wesson 40 right there. Okay, give me the ID. They check the ID, yep, that's really you. Okay, I'm going to hold on to this. Here, you check out the gun. And you try to run out, they just shoot your ass. Because you're going to go, if you're a criminal stealing a gun, the chances are real good that you're going to use that gun to hurt someone. So they just shoot you. And while I'm not really for Judge Dredd style summary execution, if you try to steal a deadly weapon, any kind of force that get used against you, that's okay in my book. And we definitely shouldn't fire people who are trying to prevent the theft of weaponry.
Right. Right on. I'm still baffled about the police who let him go. I mean, I guess this is Florida. So
yeah.
Okay, he wasn't on crocodile or one of those weird drugs, and he wasn't shooting somebody's face off. So he said he would shoot somebody. Our jails are full with real crazy, so let's just let him go.
Yeah, it says he's under mental health supervision, but he's not in jail. So unless there is a mental health counselor just sitting with him 24 hours a day, making sure he doesn't rob another place, which, by the way, he had already robbed a pawn shop and stolen a gun earlier that day. So he was stealing another gun. He's dangerous. Shouldn't be letting him walk around on the street. That's the danger of... Well, we're going to get into another tangent here, but that's why one of the reasons why we need criminal justice reform. Because when you got a whole bunch of people sitting in jail awaiting trial because they had a half an ounce of weed on them,
right?
Then that clogs up the court, and then when Mr. Gun Thief, crazy guy who just wait and see till I shoot somebody, now you don't have room for him in jail, or you can't hold on to him because it's going to be 2 months before he gets his day in court, and that's unfair, and unconstitutional to hold people for that long. That is all kinds of messed up, and that's, if we don't get some kind of reform going, we're never going to unclog the court system, and we're going to keep imprisoning people for stupid crap.
Right. Word.
Oi. So,
Cheats hurting again?
No, that one just hurts my spirit. Here's a fun one though. Who doesn't love Papa John's pizza? The answer is all
ingredients.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The answer to that question, of course, is almost everybody. The pizza's just not that damn good, Papa John. It's the garlic butter that's good. They even talk about it in their new commercial. I guess they make sandwiches now, and it's like the joke is that, the best part of the sandwich is the garlic butter we brush on the top. That's a problem, dumbass. That's a problem that the dipping sauce is better than the pizza. Anyway, that's not a selling point. That's not a feature. That's a bug. Okay, you need to fix that. We ordered Domino's the other night, and I used to work at Domino's, so for years and years I just despised it and wouldn't eat it because, I came home smelling like it every night. Domino's exceeded Papa John's by so much anymore. It's not even funny because they put better pizza into the pizza instead of the butter. Tonight's episode, by the way, brought to you by Papa John's. Oh, shit.
Oh, man.
Oh, crap. That's my favorite Simpsons joke that I lifted there. That was from Krusty the Clown's doing his show, and he talks about how Percodan rots your brain. Who's our sponsor tonight?
By Percodan.
Percodan? Crap. Brilliant. So anyway, Papa John Schnatter He just resigned from the board of Papa John's, so he doesn't have anything to do with the company that he started anymore, because he's an idiot. So he got caught saying the N-word. Normally, I'm a big free speech guy, and I say, like, you can say whatever you want. Well, by that, I mean I can say the N-word on this show if I want to. I won't because it's disgusting and degrading to a giant percentage of the population, and the only reason you would say it is to hurt someone or illustrate how someone else hurt someone. There's no reason in any conversation to ever use that word unless it's a conversation about the word. And even though this is a conversation about the word, I'm not going to friggin' say it because it's a nasty, horrible, evil word. Anyway, but if I wanted to, I could say it on this show. So I'm like, yeah, free speech. Anybody say whatever you want. Say whatever you want all the time. Until Papa John Schnatter gets caught saying it, and him saying something dumb like that can make the stock price of his company go down. And it did go down, like 4% the day that this story broke. So yeah, sure, you're free to say that, and you're also free for your company to lose millions and millions of dollars because you're an idiot. So maybe don't say that. It's not like if the government was going to put him in jail for saying the N-word, then I'd be like, whoa, no, absolutely not. That is not cool. You cannot put people in jail for words. But you can totally fire people for words. Or you can totally cost your company money for words. That's free speech has consequences sometimes. So we'll look at the circumstances here because, man, oh man, do I think they are funny. So this was actually back in May, and it only surfaced a couple days ago. He was on a call with a PR or marketing firm, and these PR guys are they're doing a role-playing exercise with him to help him learn how to downplay or walk back his own stupid comments. So he said dumb stuff before, like NFL ratings are down because of the national anthem kneeling, which is a dumb statement to make because the reason the NFL ratings are down is because people who are like 35 and under, like us, in general, don't care half as much about football as our parents did, and the people younger than us could not give less of a damn about football for the most part. Now, they would rather watch like esports than actual sports, and that's just a trend. And you can blame a lot of that on the NFL for the way they market themselves and sticking with traditional cable instead of doing an affordable streaming service, and just all kinds of reasons why the ratings are down. And it has very, very little, if anything, to do with Colin Kaepernick not wanting to stand up for the national anthem.
Right.
So the PR firm is teaching John Schnatter how to walk back comments like that. He gets frustrated and stops, takes a break, and he says, I don't understand why I'm getting all this flack. Quote, Colonel Sanders called blacks N-word. And he didn't say N-word, he said the actual word. And KFC never got any backlash. Well, couple points there, Papa. One, no, he probably didn't, jackass. Unless you got him on tape. I'm not going to believe that. And not Colonel Sanders, who has the same birthday as me, by the way. And two, he was born in 1890. So if he said some N-words, you know what? He was born in 1890, and that doesn't make it right, but it kind of puts the perspective in your head. Oh, he's been dead since 1980. He's been dead longer than either Josh or I has been alive. Okay? He's been dead for 38 years. It'll be 38 years in December. People used to say bad shit. That is not an excuse to say bad shit. The standards are higher now. So that's lesson learned number one from this, is the standards are higher now. It also used to be okay to own those people. So, not that long before Colonel Sanders was born. So don't say, like, well, he got away with it. I don't get it. Robert E. Lee got to own human beings. Why can't I? Because it's not 1863 anymore, okay? That's why. And the second lesson learned, don't hire this marketing firm. Because your tape of saying the N-word will get out.
So it had to have been somebody that leaked it from the marketing firm then, right?
Had to be. There's no way the PR firm is going to be like, you know how we can really get our name out there by saying how much we just fucked our big, giant, rich client.
Oh, man. Oh.
So stupid.
I got it. Yeah. That. Well, on the bright side, I bet there's a lot of pizza and some marketing. One particular marketing firm out there that you can get some representation for pretty darn cheap right now.
Yeah, there is a job opening at that marketing firm if you're in the business right now. And Domino's stock is up 48% since the beginning of the year, and my mutual fund invests in it. So, woo! Thanks, Papa
Nice.
John.
Thanks, you virulent racist.
It's like 1/10 of my total, 401k. Or not 1/10, but like 1/10%. If it was 1/10 of my total 401k and
Jeez.
if it had gone up 49%, I'd be like, "Ooh, yeah, time to retire." Well, it's like a tiny, tiny percentage, but every little bit helps. So so dumb. That runs right into our big picture topic of the night, which is freedom of speech and freedom of speech violations around the world. We have talked many times on this show how frustrating it is for us to just scream Nazi and then libtard back and forth at each other instead of having a productive decision. But at least we live in a place where you can say that. You can call President Trump a Nazi on live television, national television, and nothing bad happens to you. Now, some people might get mad at you and be mean to you on Twitter, but you don't go to jail. Nothing like that. Well, Dong Yaokung, I think I'm saying that right. I'm not very good with Chinese name. It might be Yao Qing, but it's got an extra I in there. It confused me. She's a 29-year-old woman from Shanghai. She tweeted a video of herself criticizing Chinese President Xi Jinping and pouring ink on a picture of the president. And she said, quote, "I oppose Xi Jinping and his authoritarian dictatorship," unquote, before proceeding to pour ink on the poster. She then says that she hates Xi and calls on international organizations to intervene on the, quote, Communist Party's mind control. Continuing the quote, "Friends, I have splashed ink on his photo. Let's see how he's gonna deal with me." Well, unfortunately for freedom around the world, the way he dealt with her was by sending a bunch of goons to her front door. She tweeted later a picture through a peephole at her front door of several uniformed men at her door, and now she's disappeared. All of those tweets have been deleted. Her Twitter account has been taken down, and her phone number is disconnected, and nobody knows where she is.
Man.
The bright side, if you can say such a thing, of this disgusting human rights violation is that people all around China are starting to pour ink on pictures of Xi Jinping and leave them in parks, or pour ink on municipal buildings and police stations and places like that in protest of the centralized authoritarian government. Now, China has come a long way in personal freedom, but they're still a huge, huge human rights violator. And stories like this only scratch the surface of that. I mean, the Chinese authorities have either... They still have the Panchen Lama either imprisoned or they've murdered him. They've had him since he was a little kid for like 30 years now.
Right.
For those of you who are not as nerdy about comparative religion as Josh and I are, the Panchen Lama is the counterpart to the Dalai Lama. So everybody knows what the Dalai Lama is. He's like the holy guy of Buddhism. Well, when the Dalai Lama dies, it is the duty of the Panchen Lama, who is the second in line of earthly enlightenment, to go around and find the Dalai Lama's reincarnation. And then when the Panchen Lama dies, the Dalai Lama goes around and finds the Panchen Lama's reincarnation. So they find each other in what is supposed to be an endless cycle. And that cycle's repeated like 30 times now, something like that. Well, with the Chinese government having captured and imprisoned or killed the Panchen Lama, when the Dalai Lama dies, and he will, probably not very long from now, because he's a very old man.
He's old. Yeah.
The religion is going to have a tough time finding a new Dalai Lama. And the Chinese government has gone as far as to say, like, oh, don't worry, we'll find him for you. We'll put our own leader in charge here and replace the person who is the most vocal critic of our regime in the entire world. We'll replace him. And don't worry, it'll totally be on the up and up. It'll still have all the spiritual connotations it would have if the Panchen Lama had done it himself. So, yeah, that's evil. That's terrifying. It's the kind of stuff you would never dream of in the United States. And it's not just China. Like, we have other examples that are maybe not as extreme, but from even the Western world. Like, do you remember Count Dankula, that story?
Oh, yeah.
Count Dankula was... Go ahead and run it down for us a little bit.
Wait, you asking me to run it down? Like,
yeah, if you'd like.
Man, no, it's like vague. I remember...
Well, it was him and his girlfriend's dog was the story. So Count Dankula is an English YouTuber. He lives over in the United Kingdom.
Hey, maybe I don't know this. Okay, no, story time.
Well, you might be thinking about, his name escapes me now, Freddie Williamson, maybe? But the journalist that got, or the blogger that got arrested a few weeks ago for taking pictures outside a courthouse. It's another free speech or journalism violation. Count Dankula was a month or so before that. And that's his YouTube name, obviously. His mama didn't call him Count Dankula. But his girlfriend's dog is this little pug. And part of his YouTube content would be that he hates this little yippy dog. And he would make jokes about it because his girlfriend's got like a little yippy frou-frou dog. So as a joke, he decided, what is the exact opposite of a little yippy frou-frou dog that my girlfriend thinks is so cute? I know, Hitler. So using classical dog training techniques like giving him treats and teaching a behavior, he taught the dog to give the Nazi salute. So Count Dankula made a YouTube video where he would say, come here, buddy, come here. And the dog would come up and Count Dankula would say, gas the Jews. And in response, the dog would put its hand up and do the Nazi salute. Which is very tasteless and gross, but made me laugh extremely hard. Not only because I like dark humor, because I'm just one of those gallows humor kind of guys, but I also like things that make light of Nazis, like the whole white polo shirt tiki torch Nazis, equating them with the little pug dog and kind of just making them seem like the morons they are. That's comedy, baby. But the UK government saw this, and they said, it is not legal to do the Nazi salute. It is not legal to do this kind of hate speech, and they arrested him. And he had his day in court, and he ended up paying... He had got off, for the UK, he got off easy. He had to pay a £500 fine, which is about $800. But he also had legal fees out the butt that just dwarfed that fine. And he also got told, you're not going to do that again, or you're going to face serious consequences. So, in my mind, you should be able to say or do anything along those lines that you want. And if viewers think it's stupid, they won't watch. And if sponsors want to drop you, they'll drop you. But you should be allowed to make jokes. Like, there shouldn't be restrictions on speech, political or otherwise.
No doubt. Man, UK, get it together. There's been way too many stories like that.
They're bad. I mean, the UK, it's still freer than, Central African dictatorship or, something like that. It's not Pol Pot or anything, but man, it's not what it used to be. It's cameras everywhere watching your every move, supposedly for your safety. Watch what you say, because if you offend someone, you can potentially go to jail. Don't take pictures of suspects outside a courthouse because reasons. That's scary stuff to me.
No doubt.
I mean, the guy that got arrested for that, we talked about him on the show before, but the guys were credibly accused of being a grooming gang, which means that they take 12 to 14-year-old girls and rape them and just basically kidnap them and teach them that this is what you're for. You exist for us and all of our buddies to rape you. That's pretty messed up. And this guy is in jail for taking video of them outside the courthouse. That is, compare that.
That's messed up.
Compare that with the head of the White House press corps, or at least CNN's lead correspondent in the press corps, being able to stand up and just shout at Donald Trump and call him a baby kidnapper or whatever. I don't have to agree with people who shout horrible things to think like, oh, they should definitely be allowed to say that. But it makes me sad, and we definitely don't want to see this here in the U.S. in a couple of weeks when I'm out in Washington, I'm going to meet Dave Rubin, who is one of my favorite political commentators. And he faces a lot of this kind of stuff. Like, he's gay. He is so gay that he married another gay guy. But since he doesn't go along with the thinking that all Republicans are evil and nasty and terrible and all Democrats are therefore awesome and I love them, he doesn't really adhere to that. So he gets called regularly a homophobe. And his response is usually like, well, don't tell my husband I'm a homophobe because I don't want to have a fight about it. But it's better that we're able to say those kinds of stupid, horrible things than not. Let us sort it out for ourselves. Freedom isn't always comfortable.
Right. Exactly.
Right,
and we've lived with people saying "Go Blackhawks" this whole time.
I mean, that's the most hateful thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
And holy cow, have you seen that? You've been on vacation, but did you read up on some of the moves the Blues made?
Now that I did a little bit.
It's a sports podcast now, folks.
Good.
Start the season. Start the season now. Get it going. The Blues, they have the deepest third and fourth lines in the league now. They are definitely have the most depth in the league, which means they're going to be injury resistant, which means they're going to be late season monsters. And they have, 4 legit centers now. They have two outstanding goal scoring lines, one very good one, and the fourth line is not a chance for the other team to take a break. That's for sure. The pressure is still going to be on, which will translate into a lot of momentum carrying through, especially in the late part of every game. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I got like a little chub sitting here thinking about it.
Nice.
But I think that's all we got for this week, man. I've exhausted myself being angry and having. I'm mostly angry at my dentist, but I'm a little angry at politics also. So unless we have anything else we want to throw in there, I guess we'll call it a day.
Sounds good, man.
All right, cool. Well, I'm super glad to have you back. We're gonna be back doing the very same thing next week after I get back from Pittsburgh. The week after that, the scheduling of the show might be weird because of my travel, but we'll see what we can do. We'll definitely have some kind of content for you out there, folks. But until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us. Tell your friends, for God's sake, so that we can make back our production cost. We are blatantly begging you for money. But yeah, until next week, I'm Ken Bone, alongside my good buddy Josh Burkett, and I approve this sweater.